Hello everybody, Julia here from Just One More Card, and today I'm back with a new coloring tutorial featuring a digital stamp by Bloobel Designs. And also I wanted to mention the digital description that they have now, because I really enjoy the digital images. So they have a subscription that costs you $5 per month, and you'll receive 2 digital stamps, which will remain exclusive to the True Blue members for about 2 months. And you'll also get a voucher for $1.50, which will remain valid until the end of every month. So you can get like a 50% rebate on any other stamp that you buy in the store. And if you're watching this in April 2017, I might have a giveaway on my blog for you, so head on over there as well. Now, I am featuring one of the images that used to be a subscription image, or still is a subscription image. That is this one. And you can see I also have other images by Bloobel Designs that I've printed here on this watercolor paper, which I'll color up later. But today I'll focus on this lady here. I love the crookedness of those images, and I decided to use my Inktense pencils to get into all the details. So I have the big box, the big Inktense box. And I'm also going to be using my favorite brush, which is this one here, and it's a Da Vinci Photosynthetics brush, and it has a very, very fine tip. Just to compare it here, this is my black velvet brush. This is a number 2 size brush, and you can see the other one in comparison. So I'm using one that has a really, really super fine tip. I also have some clean water here. And I'll also be using just a regular paper towel from the kitchen just to wipe my brush off, like both color and wetness. These are the colors that I am going to be using for her skin. I'm just going to leave that here for a moment so you can write that down. And then the way I am coloring is I'm wetting my brush, then I'm picking up the color directly from the tip of the pencil. So I'm not putting the pencil to the paper, I'm picking up the color directly from the pencil. Yes, from the pencil. I'm putting it into the areas that are going to be darkest. And then I clean off my brush. I pull my brush across the paper towel to make sure to remove most of the moisture, so it's just damp. And then I'm smoothing the color out. So I have a very soft gradient from dark color towards white. And that's how I progress around the entire image. Now these images are quirky, so I feel that it's completely okay if you're like not a perfect colorist to have maybe some rough edges here or there, or not be completely lifelike. I think these images are super forgiving and therefore are super fun to color in, because you know you're not beating yourself up if something is not entirely perfect, because these images are imperfect. I mean, I love the images, but they're like of imperfect, fantastical beings, so to speak. So it's completely okay to just have fun with the coloration. By the way, you can see here that using this very fine brush allows me to add a lot of details or just put color exactly where I want it to be. And by using a damp brush to smooth out the color that I put down instead of a wet brush, I'm able to control how far the color spreads. And it also dries rather quickly, which allows me to color adjacent areas very soon after I've colored, you know, the other adjacent area. So this is basically what I'm doing. I'm putting down the first coat of color here. And don't worry if it looks too dark. We're actually gonna go a little bit darker. It's going to look different once you've colored up the hair and the rest of her. So this is now the second color. And you can see once more I'm putting down the color in the shadow areas. And then I'm using my damp brush to smooth everything out and pull the color towards the lightest part of her face. There we go. And this is a more reddish tone, which makes the skin look a little bit more natural, at least in my opinion. But I mean, feel free to experiment with whatever colors you've got. I mean, you know, they're like, everybody has a different kind of skin tone, so there's no right or wrong here. Go crazy, do whatever you like best. And you can see the same principle applies over and over, just smoothing everything out here very gently with a damp brush. And here I'm coming back and adding some reds just for some blush. And again, using my damp brush to smooth everything out. If you find that you put too much color down, you can use a clean damp brush to pick up some of the color. But remember, these are Inktense pencils. Unlike watercolor, once these are dry, you can't move the color anymore. You can't pick it up. With watercolor, you can reactivate the color after it has dried and still move it around or remove it a bit. Inktense pencils, when they are dry, they're permanent. So yeah. If you want to, manage those colors, don't let them dry. So of course I'm going to leave most of her eyeball white, but just to give the illusion of white, I'm adding a tiny bit of blue here and there, and then using my damp brush once more to pull out the color. And you can see here I pulled the color out and I'm wiping off the brush before I move into the lightest part of the eye, just to make sure that I'm not using too much color. Now that was quite challenging. The hair is always quite challenging for me, but then again, I do like challenges. So you can see that I'm actually struggling here how to hold the paper, and I'm holding my brush almost vertical, so almost at a 90-degree angle to the paper, and then with a rather dry brush, so there's not a lot of wetness in this brush. With a rather dry brush, I'm making short flicking strokes, and that allows me to have these strands of hair. You can see here what I'm doing, like very, very short flicking strokes. The brush has very little wetness, very little moisture. It's all rather dry. And then I leave the hair as it is. Like I'm not going to go crazy and going to add other stuff to the hair, because I'm just going to mess it up and then I'm not going to like it anymore. So just going to leave it like this for now. I'm using two different shades of green here on the hat. I used first the darker color, and then because Inktense dries permanently, I can use the other color on top of it, which is a little bit more of a richer green, without worrying to reactivate the darker color. So that was actually pretty cool. I'm using the same tones of green here on her eyes. And you can see that I also left one of like a little bit of white, as you can see here as well, just to have this kind of light reflection that you often see in people's eyes. So there we go. Using the same shades of green as well for her, I don't know, for her jacket. Yeah, jacket, it's called a jacket. I put down the color there, then I'm using my damp brush to smooth it out and pull the color out. And I really like how you have a very dark edge there, and then it's just a very soft gradient towards the highlight. That's something that I really like, and that I love about the Inktense colors that let me do this. You can see here once more putting down the darkest color in the shadow, where I think the shadow areas are, and then using my damp brush to smooth all of this out. And pushing the color around here. And then you have a really nice gradient. Gonna do the same thing on her skirt here. And even though this is a plug for Bloobel Designs and for their Digi stamp subscription, about which I have more in the video description below, I also need to mention once more that my coloring skills, as far as they are present, and they're a little bit rusty because I didn't color for such a long time. I learned all of them at Kit and Clowder online classes. I'll put a link to them in the video description below if I forget, because, you know, I'm older. I also have a link to them on my blog in the sidebar, Kit and Clowder, and they do coloring classes for Copics, for pencils. I think they also have a watercolor coloring class, but I mean the principles and how to color clothes are pretty much the same. It's just how you apply the color is a little bit different, but the principles are the same. You can apply them with different mediums. So those coloring classes actually helped me to, you know, get like the folds in this skirt right, because otherwise I wouldn't have known how to do that. And you can see that I'm leaving lots of highlights here. So my goal is not to have like full color coverage everywhere, but I just want to I want to hint at the details, and then let the viewer fill in the blanks, so to speak. So you can see I'm leaving, there's a lot of white space left on the skirt, even even the shirt, and you know, that's okay for me. That's completely fine by me. Then, because I love purple and I think green and purple is a great combination, I am using purple on her vest. And you can see here I'm doing the same thing as I did on her face, on her shirt, on her skirt. I'm applying the darkest color in the shadow areas, then using the damp brush to pull out the color before it dries. Remember, once it dries, it's permanent. So you have to find out how your paper reacts to this color and how much moisture you can use before this all dries up. It takes some experimenting, but I mean, you know, nobody's grading you on this stuff, so just remember to have fun. And if something goes wrong, well, you know what? You've actually learned something then, you know, how not to do it. So it's never a waste. So if you find something that doesn't work, maybe even make a note somewhere, or what I do, if I have a piece that I'm coloring and something didn't turn out well, I actually usually on the back side of it, I write down what didn't go well, what did I do wrong. And then I put this into, I have a notebook where I keep all my colorations, and I keep track of what I'm doing, and then I can refer back to it. And then I, you know, because sometimes you forget what you did wrong, and it helps to sometimes just look at this and remember how you did something or why something didn't work. So remember, even if something doesn't turn out perfectly, you've just learned something and that was worth it. So here I am done with the entire coloration of this beautiful image, which is part of the Bloobel subscription service. A link to it is in the video description below and on my blog, where I will have a giveaway if you're watching this in April 2017. Here are some close-ups of the coloration that I've done. I skipped this part because it's basically the very same thing that I did on the rest of the image, and this video was already running pretty long. Sorry about that. And here's the entire image, and I had a blast coloring this lady up. That was really so much fun. I just love using my Inktense pencils. So I hope you found this inspiring and interesting. Check out these videos as well, and thank you so much for watching. I'll catch you guys again soon, and until then, have a fantastic day. Cheers!